This is Hannibal here from the Hannibal TV.com. And as my special guest today, I have a man that I've known for a while now, former WCW superstar, former WWE superstar, the son of Shawn Stasiak, wrestling legend. I believe he's in the WWE Hall of Fame, former world champion. And you were known as Meat in WWE. To some fans might remember you better as that. You are now a doctor of chiropractic. You are a superhero and an alter ego. You have a lot going. And this is also airing on your YouTube channel, Shawn's World. But the reason I am talking to you today is because you were on the infamous plane ride from hell, the dark side of the ring, did a documentary on, and you've never told this story public, and you're going to tell it tonight, what your experience was on the plane ride from hell. So thank you for doing this with us.
Yeah, Hannibal, thanks for having me. And it's funny, you and I have been talking for the last, I think the better part of this year, and it's the first time we've ever connected FaceTime. We're just talking about that. Next step will be meeting in person, and maybe you'll get a chance to get back down here to Dallas. And it is called Shawn Stasiak's World, but I just started this YouTube channel. Please subscribe. I'm just starting out. Love the support and the love. Anyway, yeah, man.
By the way, I will just plug it right now, December 11th, since we are also on the World Class Pro Wrestling YouTube channel. They are coming to Southern Junction in Irving. Maybe I'll hook up with you that weekend. And yeah, looking forward to meeting you in person. And we are going to do a full career interview with you September 30th, just so the fans can mark that down.
Absolutely. Cool. Okay, plane ride from hell. So, that's so crazy because I guess the documentary just came out on Vice, Dark Side of the Ring. And I watched the clip. You sent it to me last night. And I've been under the weather the last couple of days. I couldn't sleep last night, so I'm tossing and turning. It was like 5 a.m. and I'm like, you know what? Let me just watch that damn thing. So I watched it from my phone, and I got to tell you, the time that I was done watching that, I was depressed, man. I felt really bad. I felt really, really bad. I felt bad for that the airline stewardess. Her story, her perspective, her experience of that trip, and just to be associated with that, it just made me feel. I felt awful. So, I have recollection of that flight. That was over 20 years ago. And, it's funny because I'm listening to all these stories in the documentary, and I'm learning this for the first time. I'm thinking I was on that plane, but we were on for 14 hours. Devin, I don't even remember being delayed for 7 hours on the tarmac in London. So it was a 14-hour flight apparently. I was on that flight. That is the plane ride from hell. And there's rumor, and I want to ask you this real quick. There's rumor that there was more than one plane. My understanding and my recollection was there was only one plane that left that night to get back to the States.
Okay, here's the clarification on that, because I've researched it further. Jonathan Coachman, who was on the plane ride from hell, is claiming that Vince was not actually on that flight and may have been on a different flight. And there is some confusion that there was another European flight somewhere around this time where Vince and Kurt Angle wrestled. That was not this plane ride from hell. So some people are mixing the two together. Dave Meltzer is reporting that at the time he was also told Vince McMahon wasn't on the flight. So the confusion is, was Vince on the flight? And also there was actually another flight where Kurt Angle and Vince got into it. That did not happen this time.
Yeah, and that was confusing me because I don't recall seeing Kurt on that flight, either Mark, Undertaker. And when I heard that story about them having a takedown tournament in the aisle of an airplane, I said, that's nuts. That's crazy going on. And, you're 35,000 feet up in the air. And in this case, the plane ride from hell, we're sailing over the Atlantic Ocean. So, yeah, but here's the thing. This is my recollection. I made some notes here, and I'm just going to go through them on what I remember my experience. But again, you got to realize this was over 20 years ago. I did look, and I don't want to say what's true, what isn't, because everybody has their side of a story. The thing with Ric Flair, really disturbed me to hear that story. Now, whether or not that's entirely accurate or true, I don't know. I don't want to say one way or the other. I know that Rick was known to Nate, as they called it, which he liked to have a good time and would put the robe on. And I remember him having the robe on in the plane. This is one of my memories that I remember, because up at I was like in the middle or towards the back of the plane, from what I remember. And I remember going up towards the front when there was some chaotic stuff going on. One of them was Flair in his robe walking up and down the aisle, but I thought it was funny because I didn't see anything with the stewardess, that story, that supposed story. And I'm not saying, I'm not calling either side. I was just very disturbed to hear that. I wish that wouldn't have happened, or hope it wouldn't have happened, that whole story. But, you know, I do remember at that point, that was probably well into the trip. And I remember going up towards the front of the plane. And I just remember in my mind thinking, I don't recall seeing Vince on that plane. Because I heard that Michael Hayes or maybe it was Michael Hayes, maybe it was someone else, was so intoxicated, they went to take a leak on, they thought Linda McMahon sitting in one of the seats was the stall. Like he was.
That was supposedly also on another flight, from what I understand.
Okay, I don't know. I'm getting the two confused too. But this is the plane ride from hell where, you know, Flair was up, you know, walking up and down the aisle with his robe on and just nachin, I guess is how they say. I know Bradshaw had a cut on his head. I guess he was sleeping, and Hayes popped him in the head and opened up his forehead. I guess slapped Hayes and knocked him out. I didn't see any of that. I didn't see the Brock Lesnar, Kurt Hennig wrestling match. I do remember, though, there being a lot of concern and commotion with those two. And the time that I got over to the area of the plane where it happened, it was pretty much, you know, resolved, or people were kind of settling back down. But I guess they ran into the emergency door. You know, I'm hearing the story for the first time going, man, what would have happened if they would have ran through would have lodged that door open? We probably wouldn't be here today, you know? But I remember Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross, I was standing next to them, and they were just watching Rick do his, you know, up and down doing the aisle thing with his robe on. And they were just they were just disappointed, and they were just like, man, this is unbelievable. I can't believe we're seeing this, or whatever. They were just really disgusted with the whole thing. That's pretty much, you know, my memories of that plane ride. I don't remember Dustin singing. I'm going by all what I saw in that documentary, Dustin singing to Terry on the intercom. I did hang out with Nash, Hall, and X-Pac in the back of the plane a couple times. They always took me in, and they were always cool to me, so I felt comfortable hanging out with them. At that time, I was riding with RVD, so Rob was doing his thing. He was quiet doing, you know, I think he was reading a book of all things and just went to sleep. I had my little section across from where Rob was, but I would get up and go intermingle with people and just, you know, having a good time, but nothing crazy, just socializing. But all the craziness, I didn't really witness, to be honest. All those real detailed stories of just some of the more disturbing things that happened. I wasn't there. I didn't see it, I should say. I was on the plane. I was there, but I didn't see it. That's pretty much my, you know, take on that whole plane ride from hell. I will say this. I do remember this was kind of funny. I don't know who it was, but Big Show was in a seat on the aisle way. He's a giant. He's so big, and he's falling asleep, or he's sleeping, and someone put shaving cream on his head. And as soon as there's a couple of guys that were up doing it, they're ribbing him, right, putting shaving cream on his head, and he just woke up and just blew. I never seen a guy that size run so fast down the aisle chasing whoever he get his hands on. When I saw they were doing that, I just dove into one of the seats. Right, it wasn't even my seat, but just got into an empty seat because I didn't want him to think I was part of it. Because that's the last thing you want, is a pissed off giant on a tour chasing you in an airplane 30,000 feet over the Atlantic Ocean. I remember Scott Hall being in bad shape when we got off. When we landed in the States, you know. That was disturbing. Scott is documented and has been well vocal about, his issues and challenges with that kind of stuff, with, alcohol and substance abuse. So, I think that that wraps it up for me as far as that plane ride from hell. To me, it wasn't really a plane ride from hell. It actually was, as ironic as it sounds, it was actually a fun trip. I actually enjoyed it. That's the bizarre thing about it, because I wasn't in the mix of all the craziness, I guess. I just was there enough to socialize and have my own experience with it. And it was, to me, I guess, because I never got in trouble for anything, and I wasn't involved with any of that other riffraff, if you will. So that's pretty much the plane ride from hell experience for me, being on that plane.
There's a couple of fans on here that want to know who won between Lesnar and Hennig, from what you recall. I know you didn't actually see it, but I'm sure you heard the talk. From all the stories that I hear, it almost seems like you didn't really get a final result of who came out on top. It almost seems like it got broken up. Like, you would think that Brock would just demolish Kurt. God rest Kurt's soul. I love Kurt Hennig. He was one of the main reasons why I got into professional wrestling. My dad wrestled with his dad, Larry the Axe Hennig, and knew Kurt when he was just a young boy, young kid. So for me, and I'll get into this in our full interview, on the 30th. But I guess, Kurt was pretty scrappy too. And you're in a small confined space in a plane. I don't know. I guess he held his own. So I don't know what the end result would be or was. I would have to say, if I was a betting man in Vegas, I've got to put my money on Brock. But I don't know who came out on top on that one, to be honest. I think it just got broken up, and it was just a big hoopla. You mentioned to me before you were still friends with Terry Runnels. She said in this that Brock had exposed himself to her on that pay-per-view before the plane ride. Did Terry, as a friend of yours who also managed you for a while, ever mention anything about that to you at the time?
No, I never. In fact, during that time, I wasn't working with Terry anymore. I worked with Terry briefly when I first broke in my rookie year. And I had even left WWE and went to WCW, had my WCW experience before I went back to WWE my second tenure. And I was doing a completely different, we didn't work together at that point. And I never, I like Terry. She's always been cool. And in fact, when I first got in the business at that level, when I got elevated to the main roster, she had been around a few years, and, you learn little tidbits from everybody. Just little things that make a big difference. So, but she was always cool. We always had a good rapport. I enjoyed working with her. I felt comfortable working with her, vice versa. I think she felt the same way. But we didn't really have deep conversations, and it was just more hi, bye, and how you doing? How's your daughter? That's pretty much it. Again, these are stories that I'm hearing for the first time.
And again, you really have no recollection if Vince was on that flight or not.
God, I just don't know, Hannibal. I want to say, it's weird, like you're trying to take your mind back to something, and I'm trying so hard, but I'd be lying to say that I knew for sure he was or he wasn't. I just don't know for sure. And you think I would, but I do remember there was a level or a sense of thought, or I guess awareness that, hey, at the very front of the plane is where the executives and the office people are at, and I want to say that he was there, that Vince is up at the front, and I thought back then I knew that. So I just had no reason to be up at the front unless we had to speak about something or whatever. He'd call me up front, or maybe if I needed to go seek him out or whatever. But I think in my mind back then, I remember, I know Jim Ross was up towards the front of the plane. Jerry Lawler, I guess Paul Heyman. I don't know. I don't remember for sure if Vince was there, because the whole thing about if Linda, that whole incident about whoever was going to take a whiz on Linda, thinking she was the stall, that story, then you'd think he would be on the plane then because his wife, Linda's there, right? You'd think for sure he's got to be on that plane unless they take separate flights. But I would think that they would travel together. The family would, right? So I don't know. I just don't know. And it bothers me because you think I would know.
So because you were in the plane and you didn't know most of this stuff that was going on, that's all coming out and people are getting punished over right now, you could see if Vince McMahon had been on the plane, there is a chance he might not have realized that it was as bad as it was as well.
Well, I don't know because the plane was pretty big, man. I mean, from what I remember, I mean, I don't understand how I did not know or have a better grasp on some of these detailed incidences that happened. I was on the same plane. So I guess it was I guess it was a 757, 747. I don't remember the size of the plane. You know, I had a couple of drinks, I'm sure. I mean, I was never out of control. I mean, life's all about balance, right? But I just don't remember. I don't remember. You would think that if all that was going on, he would have intervened, right? But that never happened. So maybe he wasn't. That's the weird thing. He took a separate flight, separate plane, private plane. That seems to be the big question, right? Was Vince McMahon on the plane? I don't know. Someone's got to know. Someone would know.
And finally, a bunch of the fans on here are wondering, is it true that somebody had, well, I think Jim Ross actually said this, that somebody had put Michael Hayes' ponytail in a Ziploc bag and taped it up in the locker room?
I never saw that either, but I heard that story. I didn't see it get cut off. Although I was hanging out with the NWO guys, Hall, Nash, and Shawn, X-Pac. We were hanging out. I hung out with those guys for a while and had a good time. They were fun to be around. Made the trip easier, but I wasn't around them. I guess I must have gone back to my area of the plane or went to sleep or whatever. I don't know. But I guess what Shawn, or someone put it in a Ziploc bag, and the next night it was TV. So they pinned it up on a wall or door or something, and they were going to auction it off or something. And I guess Jim Ross from the story is he walked by and saw it and grabbed it and took it down before Michael Hayes saw that. So, because he was already very pissed off that even happened. So I can't imagine what he would have felt like seeing a piece of his hair, a chunk of his hair, stuck on a wall being auctioning off.
Now, the last thing, did they have any type of meeting with everyone to address this, or was this just something that they talked about for a little bit to people privately, and people like you who weren't involved in any of the incidents, nothing was mentioned?
Oh, God. I feel so. You're asking me all these questions, and I'm sitting here trying to rack my brain around it. I can make up a story and say, yeah, they Devin, I don't remember that either, man. I would imagine they did. I know that I never did anything to land me in hot water. I wasn't part of any of that serious nonsense that went on, the craziness that went on. So I don't remember. Maybe I'm sure, some guys got fired, didn't they? They fired Scott Hall and Kurt Hennig, unfortunately. Dustin came close, I think. Ric Flair, got a pass. But I would imagine, those guys had a talking to, obviously, right?
X-Pac got a pass too, apparently, somehow.
Yeah, I guess he did. Yeah. I don't know, man. Hey, professional wrestling and politics, right? It's like peanut butter and jelly. Goes hand in hand. So
that's for sure. And you were kind of one of the victims of that, but we're not going to get into it today. There's a lot of questions on here for you that fans, September 30th, we will get into that in his career interview. This was just to address the plane ride from hell situation because it's been in the news. So thank you very much for addressing that. And is there anything you want to plug or say to the fans here?
Yeah, I do want to say what my plane ride from hell was, and it was part of WWE, and I'll share this with you. We were in, and you'll appreciate this because you're Canadian. we were in New Brunswick doing, or we were in Canada, but we were finishing our last show in New Brunswick. And I was working Randy Orton actually that night. This is before Randy, he was just developing, and they actually, it's funny, they stuck Randy with me to kind of take care of him when we were in Canada. So I was kind of showing him around, you know, just, he was kind of under my wing, I guess, so to speak, right? He was a real young kid then, like probably in his early, 21, 22. Anyway, we're in Canada. We had good matches, Randy and I too, had good dance partner. We flowed, everything flowed well. Wish we would have had an opportunity to really work together, you know, later down the road. I guess they say never, right? Never too late. You never know. But anyway, my point is so they came to all of us before we were heading back to the States, because we had Raw, I think, in New York City or somewhere on the East Coast. I think it was New York, Madison Square Garden. Maybe New Jersey. It was one of those East Coast, northern East Coast towns or cities. And they said there's a snowstorm coming in, a blizzard snowstorm. So like if your match, if you had 8 minutes, get it done in 5, you know, everyone was cutting their time to go home early so we could get on the charter and get back to the States to beat the storm. Well, everyone, you know, cut their matches early and we got on the plane all right, but we end up mistiming something and we end up getting caught in the storm, in the air, on the way, you know, probably a couple hundred miles out, you know, maybe an hour outside of landing. And it was brutal, man. I don't know if you've ever had, I mean, you've probably flown quite a bit, you've had some experiences, but, you know, I've flown my whole life. I don't recall ever being that freaked out. I thought, like, this really could be it. Like, you're going to, you know, the world's going to read about the WWE roster went down in a plane and that's it, you know, because the wings were just bending and just, I mean, it was just bad turbulence. That was a plane ride from hell. It went on for like 40 minutes straight. It wouldn't let up because, you know, you hit turbulence for a while. It's like, okay, it kind of sucks, but you get through it, right? But this thing just wouldn't stop. And I'm looking at the wings outside and they're like bending. And I'm like, these things, how are they even staying up? These things are going to snap off any minute. And, you know, it's pretty bad when Big Show is right in front of you and he's just like got his head buried in the front seat. And he's just like, I guess he must have been praying or something because he was freaked out, man. So anyway, we got through it obviously, but you know, that was my plane ride from hell with WWE.
Very good. Well, that does seem a little bit scary for sure. You could have used the open bar on that one.
Yeah. I did not enjoy that plane ride from hell. That first one, the infamous one, I enjoyed that one, ironically enough.
Yeah, I could see the fun side of it. And again, the woman, for whatever reason, didn't press criminal charges. And I don't know enough information about the actual settlements and court cases to really judge that it's anything more than hearsay at this point. But it's unfortunate, the whole situation.
Yeah, and that's what when I watched that last night, I just felt, wow, it's kind of weird to be in the vicinity or at the same place, in this case, in a tube 30,000 feet up in the air over the Atlantic Ocean. I remember that flight. I remember bits and pieces. A lot of details are just vague to me. I can't remember. But after watching that, these are people, these are their purposes, what they remember. So, and I think that some of the same stories have been repeated and they're pretty much like aligned, like they're pretty accurate, right? So I'd venture to say that certain stories they happened, right? But the thing with the stewardess or the flight attendant, I just, that's someone's wife, could be someone's mom. She was a mom to a young daughter. It could be someone's sister. Think about how would you, like, someone close to you, being in that environment. It's just have to come home and say, hey, honey, how was your flight? You got to think about the dynamics of how that affects other people. And, we're like, no one's perfect. We all make mistakes. Mike Enos told me a long time ago, so that professional wrestlers were basically junior high school students with money. And, the boys will be the boys, I guess. But to me, it's unacceptable. I don't care. I mean, that's a culture of pro wrestling, the boys. But you got to have some integrity and have have some respect. And, you know, you can't make excuse, oh, they're drunk and popping pills or whatever. They're not in their right minds. Come on, you got to take responsibility. Again, I don't want to say that I don't know, like, the validity, the details of the story. It's her story a little fabricated or blown out of proportion? Is it exaggerated, or is it not? You know, so I don't know. And I like Ric Flair. I mean, come on, who doesn't? I grew up watching him, man. You know, he's a legend. So I love Ric Flair. It's disappointing though when you hear that about one of your idols or one of your, you know, a legend of a.
Someone's asking if you ever saw him do the helicopter spin.
A genre of something that you really. Oh, it looks like Hannibal disappeared. There you are.
Yeah.
That's what my alter ego does, man. It makes people disappear. See that? I was already working my magic. It's not even Halloween yet. But yeah, man, it's just disappointing to hear that. I felt sick to my stomach. I woke up. That's probably why I don't feel that good either. I'm not feeling that great as it is. Hannibal the last couple days, and I watched it. I was like, I even feel worse, man. I wanted to go throw up. I didn't. It was the whole thing. I'm just glad that I wasn't part of any of, you know, the serious crap that happened. And I hope that it almost seemed like that lady, you know, and look, there's over central. What do you call it? Sensationalism going on. There's the music and the sad, you know, while she's talking, but it came across as something just like she was traumatized by this, and who knows how it affected her, you know, after years later. I hope she's got her wits and she's overcome whatever that might have caused. You just never know what psychological damage or how you're going to affect people. You know, words to things you say. I've learned this myself over the years. You know, we're not perfect. We make mistakes. I've screwed up many times, and I've conducted myself in ways that doesn't reflect who I really am as a person. Like, you know, I don't know. That to me, when I saw that documentary, I felt really bad for that lady. I just was like, if I would have been, let's say that was happen all over again right now, there's no way in heck I'd have to intervene. I don't give a shit. If it would have affected me, I would have got heat with the. You can't let something like that happen, man. You can't sit there and watch that and see that and just not do nothing. I couldn't live with myself today. You know, I just would.
Maybe they'll make a movie about this sometime.
Yeah, you never know, right? And then they'll have me on there as a character that doesn't remember shit. And ask questions.
Everyone wants me to ask you, and I hate to ask you this, but they all want to know if you've seen Flair do his naked dance ever in your career. You've been around him.
No, I've never seen the naked dance, man. No.
Maybe your dad has.
I don't know, man. My dad used to do some funny things, man. My dad was a bit of a ripper too. The only real experience I had with Flair was pretty cool, actually. I don't remember how it all happened, but we had to get, I think I don't know if we were going from one town to the next. We were going to be in the car for like a couple hours. So I got to ride with him. He said, hey, you want to catch a ride with me to go to the next town? Or so I forget what it was exactly, but I rode with him. I was waiting for somebody and he was getting the rental car. I forget what happened, what the scenario was. God, I feel like I have amnesia. I can't remember anything, Hannibal. Maybe I do. I had one too many concussions. Who knows? But it's just been so long ago, you know, it's hard to remember 20 years ago. But I do remember him saying, hey, come. And I'm thinking, I'm going to ride with Ric Flair. Damn right, man. I hopped in, and I remember because he came through Portland, you know, when I lived in Portland, Oregon. And Portland was a territory back in the territory days. And so guys like Ric Flair, Rocky Johnson, that's how I met The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, you know, when I was 10 and he was 8. You know, when Rocky came, or, you know, Rocky Johnson, his dad came through the territory, Andre the Giant, Harley Race. Ric Flair was one of them. So I remember watching Ric Flair once or twice a year coming through the Portland territory back in the late 70s, early 80s. And then here I am in the car with him. Fast forward years later, I'm in the WWE now, and I'm with, you know, the 16-time world heavyweight champion, Rick Nature Boy Flair, and just picking his brain. And he was very authentic, very real, very personable. Just a real person. I felt very comforted, actually. He reminded me of my dad, you know, and, you know, it's funny. I better shut up because you're like, Shawn, we're going to run out of time on our interview. We'll have like part 10, you know, as much as I talk. You should tell the fans how many audio clips I've left you and how much we've talked. Every time I talk to Hannibal here, we're like, shit, man, 2 hours just went by. This could have been another podcast, you know?
Yeah, see, even my dogs come in now to tell me to close it off here. But I'm only going to have 5 questions, and I don't even think you're going to answer that for your career interview.
Well, how long's hey, let's have a bet here. How long's the and I promise I won't shortchange my stories then. So how long is the interview? An hour?
Yeah.
5 questions. Can I answer 5 questions in an hour? That's the big question, fans.
Yeah.
Hey,
you fans, write in the comments of this video what 5 questions you want me to ask him. And so I have some to choose from.
Hey, is that Piper?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Let's see. Piper.
I'm going to say hi. It's already cold, getting cold here, so she got her sweater on.
How old is she?
She's 9.
Oh, wow. What kind? Is it a poodle?
Yes.
I had my
miniature poodle.
My first dog ever. His name was Pepper. It was a poodle. That's why same color, everything, man. Anyway, to wrap this up, Devin, I was just going to say, it's a disappointment when you have legends and people you look up to, and I don't know if you've experienced it, but it's very disheartening when you sometimes when you hear that saying, when you meet your heroes, you're truly disappointed. Unfortunately, a lot of times I wasn't with Rick. It was actually an enjoyable experience and something I won't ever forget. But anyway, on that note, the documentary left me feeling sad and crappy, and I hope everyone's healed from it. And on that note,
thank you for watching the Hannibal TV.